In 2021, buyers would fight to pay top dollar for a house with a green shag carpet and a leaking roof just to get their footprint on Long Island. They'd waive inspection, they'd waive the appraisal contingency. They didn't care that the kitchen hadn't been touched since 1987 because there were 12 other offers behind them, and the house next door just sold for $80,000 over asking price. Fast forward to 2026, a dated house is a massive liability. Today, I'm going to show you exactly why that flip happened, what it costs sellers who don't adjust to it, and the specific high return on investment moves that protect your equity instead of torching it. Let's look at the numbers. I'm Maureen Folan, the queen of Queens real estate. Over 30 years of selling homes in Queens and Long Island. I want you to grab a coffee. This one's going to change how you think about listing your home for sale. Section 1, the buyer's sensitivity shift. Why 2021 buyers tolerated just about anything. Let's rewind for a second because you can't understand the shift without understanding what it's a shift from. In 2021, mortgage rates were sitting around 3%. That meant buyers had enormous purchasing power relative to their income. A $700,000 mortgage at 3% costs roughly the same monthly payment as a $500,000 mortgage does today. That extra purchasing power gave buyers a cushion. They could still stretch on price and still have room left over, either in cash reserves or in the math of their monthly payment to renovate later. A kitchen that was dated wasn't a deal breaker, it was a future project. Fast forward to 2026, where buyers are today, the average 30-year fixed rate is sitting at 6.54%. That's more than double of where it was during the pandemic buying frenzy. And here's the part that changes everything. That rate isn't just making the housing more expensive, it's eating the buyer's entire renovation cushion. Think about that math from a buyer's actual bank account. They're putting down 10 to 20%. They're paying closing costs. In this market, they're often still competing on certain listings, which means every dollar of their offer is going toward their purchase price, not toward a rental reserve or renovation reserve. By the time they close, most buyers today have close to $0 of extra left over for a new roof, a new HVAC, kitchen gut renovation. The math simply doesn't work the way it did when rates were half of what they are now. So what happens? Buyers start pricing renovation costs directly into their offer, and not generously. If a buyer sees that a kitchen needs $60,000 of work, they don't offer $30,000 less to split the difference. They offer $60,000 less plus a discount for the hassle and uncertainty of managing a renovation on top of a mortgage they're already stretched for. Hey, I wanted to share something for free. I prepared a home seller preparation checklist for residents of Queens and Long Island. This guide will give you everything you need to know about preparing your home for sale. So if you click on the link below in the comments, you'll download your own copy for free. Or if you visit maureenfolan.com, you'll be able to get your seller checklist there. So thank you so much, and let's get back to it. Dated properties aren't just less appealing to buyers anymore, they are being mathematically penalized, dollar for dollar, in a way that they weren't just 3 or 4 years ago. The turnkey buyer defined. This is where I want to define a term you're going to hear me use a lot. Turnkey. A turnkey buyer isn't necessarily richer than a buyer from 2021. They're just rate constrained in a way that makes them behave completely different. A turnkey buyer wants kitchen and bathroom updated within the last 10 to 15 years. Not necessarily brand new, but not original to the house either. Mechanicals, roof, HVAC, water heater, electrical panel, that doesn't require immediate replacement. Move-in ready cosmetic condition, fresh paint, updated flooring, no visible deferred maintenance. Here's the important nuance. Turnkey does not mean luxury. It does not mean marble countertops and a wolf range. It means nothing left to do. A buyer today will pay a premium for nothing to do over a house that objectively nicer in some ways but requires a $40,000 project even before they can move in. That's a complete reversal of how buyers thought during the boom, when potential was a selling point. Today, potential is a code for expensive and stressful, and buyers hear it that way instantly. So let's talk about the cost of waiting, the 45-day threshold. Here's a number every seller needs tattooed on their brain: 45 days. When a home sits on the market in Queens or Long Island for more than 45 days, something predictable happens in a buyer's head. It's not that they suddenly notice new flaws in the house. It's that the listing itself becomes a red flag. Buyers, and more importantly, buyer agents start asking, why hasn't this sold yet? What do other people know that I don't know? I call this the psychological discount, and it's separate from any actual defect in the property. A structurally perfect home that sits for 60 days will get offers as if something is wrong with it, purely because it sat. And once that perception sets in, the offers that come in aren't just slightly lower, they are lowballs. Because buyers assume that they're the only ones interested and there's no urgency to be competitive. And why this hits dated homes the hardest. Here's why this specifically matters in the context of fixer-uppers. Dated homes are far more likely to sit past that 45-day mark in the first place because today's turnkey seeking buyer pool self selects out almost immediately. They see the listing photos, they see the original kitchen, and they don't even request a showing. So a dated home isn't just competing on price, it's competing for a smaller pool of buyers willing to even walk in the door, which mathematically increases the odds it crosses that 45-day threshold. Once it crosses that threshold, the seller is now fighting two problems at once: the property's actual condition and the psychological discount from the city. That's a compounding problem, not an additive one. I've seen sellers make a price cut at day 50 that should have solved the problem, but by then, the why hasn't this house sold narrative has already baked into how agents are describing the property to their buyers. It's taken on a reputation that there's something wrong or the seller must be desperate. The chain reaction of price cuts. Here's the pattern I watch play over and over. A dated home lists 5% over what the market will bear for its actual condition. It sits. At day 45, the seller cuts it by 3%. Buyers who are watching the listing seeing that cut and read as confirmation that something's wrong rather than a market correction. So instead of a new wave of interest, the seller gets one or two lowball offers below the new price. The seller holds out, cuts again day 75, and by day 90 winds up selling for less than they would have if they'd simply priced it correctly on day one. The irony is brutal. The sellers who are the most afraid of leaving money on the table by pricing it conservatively are consistently the ones who end up leaving the most money on the table because they let the 45-day clock run out before making the price correction that would have protected them. I have seen this so many times throughout the years, but more specifically, I'm seeing it a lot more often in this market. So the key is price it right from the beginning. Section 3, strategic preparation, the highest return on investment. The reframe, presentation, not renovation. Now here's the good news, and this is the part I actually want every seller watching this to walk away with. You do not need to gut renovate your kitchen to compete with today's turnkey buyer expectations. What you need is strategic presentation. The visual and psychological cues that tell a rate-squeezed buyer there's nothing left to do here, even when that's not 100% literally true. This is the difference between spending $60,000 on a renovation you may not fully recoup and spending $3,000 to $8,000 on presentation that closes the psychological gap for a fraction of the cost. Curb appeal, the highest return on investment dollar you'll spend. Curb appeal is where I tell every single seller to start because it is the cheapest lever with the highest return. Buyers and their agents are forming an opinion about your home before they even get out of the car. If the lawn is patchy, the mulch beds are overgrown, and the front door paint is peeling, you've already told a rate-anxious buyer this house needs work before they've even seen a single interior photo. The fix is not expensive. Fresh mulch, trimmed hedges, a pressure wash driveway and walkway, a freshly painted or stained front door, and updated housing numbers and light fixtures. I've watched a $2,000 to $3,000 curb appeal refresh change a buyer's entire emotional entry point into a showing. They walked in already predisposed to like what they see instead of walking in already looking for problems and tallying up what's going to cost them to correct it. Staging the data backs this apart. Staging is the next lever, and the data on this is not subtle. Staged homes have sold for roughly 20% more than non-staged homes and moved through the market dramatically faster in industry surveys, some reporting staged homes selling as much as 70 to 90% faster than the unstaged ones. The typical seller who stages sees a 5 to 15% return on investment, and staging costs generally run in the range of 1 to 3% of the home's asking price, a rounding error compared to what a full renovation would cost and compared to what sitting unsold for 90 days actually costs you in price cuts. The reason staging works so well right now specifically is that it directly counters any turnkey objection. Any empty, dated looking room forces a buyer to do the mental work of imagining what it could be. And today's stretched, rate-anxious buyer doesn't have the bandwidth or the desire to do that work. A staged room does that imagining for them. It's not decoration, it's removing friction from a buyer's decision at the exact moment that they are the most sensitive to feeling like a project is being handed to them. Lighting is the cheapest transformation in real estate. The last lever, and probably the most underrated, is lighting. Swapping out dated fixtures, adding warm-toned bulbs, and making sure every room is well lit for both showings and listing photos is one of the most lowest cost, highest impact changes a seller could make. Buyers scrolling listings online are making split-second judgments based on how bright and updated a room feels, and a dim, yellow-toned room reads dated even if the bones of the kitchen are perfectly fine. This is a few $100s in fixtures and bulbs, creating a completely different first impression. The 3x comparison. When I put it side by side for sellers, this is the comparison that clicks. Full kitchen renovation might cost anywhere from $50,000 to $70,000, and there's no guarantee you recoup all of it at the sale. Curb appeal, staging, and lighting together typically runs anywhere from $5,000 to $10,000 in total, and the data consistently shows a return multiple times that investment through faster sales and stronger offers. Call it a 3x return compared to selling as is and eating the psychological discount from sitting on the market. You're not trying to out-renovate a flipper. You're trying to remove the reasons a turnkey buyer says no, so you can open up your buyer pool to have more interest. So here's the point. The fixer-upper premium is dead because the buyer who used to pay it, the buyer with a 3% rate, cash left over to renovate, does not exist in this market anymore. Today's buyer is squeezed and they are mathematically penalizing anything that isn't turnkey. That's not a taste preference. It is a rate-driven, structural shift in how offers get built. If you're getting ready to list a home that hasn't been updated in a while, do not panic and don't assume you need a $70,000 renovation just to compete. Start with curb appeal, add staging, fix the lighting, and price it correctly from day one so you never get anywhere near that 45-day psychological discount zone. If you want a real read on where your specific home stands, whether it's $5,000 in presentation upgrade or something more, drop your neighborhood in the comments below and I'll tell you honestly what I'd recommend before you list. If this is helpful, I want you to subscribe. Every week, I break down exactly what is happening in Queens and Long Island real estate. I'm Maureen Folan, the queen of Queens real estate with over 30 years experience and 1,600 sales. So I know a couple of things about real estate. Thanks so much for tuning in, and I'll see you in the next one.